The 80s had a lot of diverse and amazing music. It was a decade dominated by cocaine, neon spandex, synth beats, and long hair, but nothing came close to the insane influence MTV and heavy metal bands had. It was basically a decade split between new wave synth pop and heavy guitars shredding harder than the fires of hell. MTV was massive in the 80s. When it launched in 1981, no one was ready for it and no one could predict just how much of an impact it would have on the 80s and easily the next 3 decades. People's minds were blown because no other channel on TV offered the originality and diversity of music television, because they weren't just playing music 24/7 and nothing else. They pushed boundaries when it came to commercials, presentation, and style. I mean, the reason the 80s looked the way they did was in many ways a direct result of MTV and their preference for music and videos that had a big focus on flashy visuals and larger-than-life sounds.
Hi, I'm Mark Goodman, and you're watching MTV Music Television. All day, all night, all video music.
Heavy metal, for example, was already pretty popular at the time, but it wasn't mainstream. It was still relatively niche, similar to punk, and certainly not seen as TV or radio friendly. Once MTV came around, this changed. Aside from being very new wave oriented, they also played more and more heavy metal, especially glam metal, and basically caused a massive boom when it came to the genre. They made it mainstream friendly, introduced it to a larger audience, and also encouraged bands to be as over the top and creative as possible. This was one of the reasons why fashion in the 80s was so diverse and crazy, aside from the mountains of neon-fueled cocaine, of course. It was an extremely creative time because new wave pop and metal didn't feel oversaturated. It was all relatively new and it made the decade feel fresh, unique and different. There was a certain style and art that was so powerful and memorable that people to this day feel a lot of nostalgia towards the 80s even if they themselves didn't experience or grow up in that decade. I mean, I know that me personally, as well as a lot of people like me, got first introduced to 80s music and pop culture through GTA Vice City. A game that not only changed the entire gaming industry and GTA franchise, and arguably has the best soundtrack of all time, but but also caused a massive boom when it comes to 80s nostalgia. Even genres such as synthwave exist in large parts because of GTA Vice City. It was a decade of chaos and neon nights. Aerobics dominated your mom's living room, while Arnold and Stallone were stuck in a brutal fight for the throne of the ultimate king of 80s action.
Remember, Sally, when I promised to kill you last?
That's right, Major. You did.
I lied.
What'd you do with Sully?
I let him go.
I don't think 80s nostalgia will ever go away, even when everyone who experienced it will be gone. The decade simply offered so much art and creativity that you can still see it in plenty of modern entertainment. The 80s had some of the most iconic and legendary bands, musicians, and songs ever made. It was a decade full of neon colors, cocaine, makeup, and spandex that was all about partying and getting laid. And it's in this decade that creative freedom was peaking and artists were pushing boundaries, breaking conventions and morals. And that's exactly why, in the mid-80s, a bunch of politicians' wives decided they were going to save children from rock and roll, because as we all know it, listening to rock and metal grows horns on your head and makes you a demon-worshipping maniac. These lonely housewives were bored out of their mind and were sadly married to influential, often radical politicians and televangelists, created the Filthy 15, songs they deemed too offensive, violent, sexual, and satanic, basically declaring war on rock and roll.
These evil people have just got to be stopped.
This is a man called Blackie Lawless, lead singer of a group called Wasp. His stage act has consisted of chaining a woman naked from the waist up to a torture rack and pretending to slit her throat.
This is entertainment? This is what our kids are looking at for entertainment?
Yes.
The 80s really were a crazy time, and when you listen to a lot of music of that time, you often tend to forget just how much pushback it received and how polarizing it was. This was also the time when televangelists were in their prime and they were influencing the opinions of thousands of parents and adults. Half the PMRC was made up of highly conservative and religious people that were still stuck in the 1950s and genuinely considered all rock music to be bad and evil.
You may not like what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it anyway because I'm not afraid to speak out. I think that the music in hell for eternity be some of this rock music with all its vulgarities and all of its sexual innuendos.
Try to justify their strobe lights and their weird wild suits and their pink hair and their yellow hair and singing their rock songs and smoke bombs going off as glorifying the Holy Ghost.
They felt like it was corrupting the youth, causing violence, and a much more sexual generation. This wasn't just an issue with rock music, they also deemed a lot of pop and new wave as abominations that had to be stopped. And this sentiment also didn't start in the 80s.
And pressing through the center, 4, 4, 3. Take it to the left, come on now. 4, 3, and release to the right. In 4, 3, 2, and back to center. Drop it all the way down, and bend your knees for 8.
So these stuck-up wives created the Filthy 15, hoping it would be effective in combating and banning a lot of these songs, saving their children from bad influence. Little did they know, it backfired pretty hard and only ended up boosting these bands and artists and their popularity, because being labeled too explicit by the moral majority in the 80s was the closest thing to getting knighted by rock and roll itself. Now, to be fair, not all of the Filthy 15 were metal songs, some were just new wave and pop. One of the most hilarious stories is how Tippa Gore, the queen of all Karens, caught her own daughter listening to Darling Nikki by Prince, which must have blown her fucking mind because she was out all day fighting for old school morals, while her daughter was rocking out to Prince and his hypersexual songs.
I met her in a hotel lobby, masturbating with a magazine. When I saw little Nikki grind, the lights went out and Nikki started to grind.
Or you can just believe I'm the only girl in your life. I'll be your sugar in the morning and the sweet stuff you need at night. Come on over, boy, anytime.
Despite that, the PMRC targeted heavy metal more than any other genre because metal bands had a tendency for provocative behavior, lyrics, and even looks. I mean, metal fashion beat the classic leather and denim aesthetic that made you look like a biker out for trouble, or the glam look that had makeup, hairspray, and feminine clothes was all about rebellion. Twisted Sister and Motley Crue dressed this way not just because it was part of the glam scene, but also because it was their way of saying fuck you to society and challenging old school conventions. This is also one of the reasons why 80s fashion in general is very colorful, glamorous, and androgynous.
She's a very kinky girl. She likes the boys in the band. That girl is pretty wild now. Girl's a super freak. That girl is pretty kinky. Girl's a super freak.
The PMRC and the moral majority didn't like this at all. Not just because they were made up by a bunch of old-timers stuck in the past, but also because a lot of them were extremely homophobic and racist. Now, all of this was happening during the Reagan years. He was preaching about freedom while America was clean-cut on the outside and completely insane underneath. PTA moms and shoulder pads were panicking over lyrics they didn't understand. They thought music was turning kids into sex-crazed, Satan-worshipping anarchists. But what the PMRC actually did was shine a massive spotlight onto all of these bands and artists and boost their popularity.
Driving all night with my machinery to show the man in me. Don't you struggle, don't you fight. Let me put my love into you, babe.
This is what?
I'll tell you, this is a group called Judas Priest, and this is their this is the way they promote themselves in a teen magazine, Hit Parader. They had a song about forcing oral sex at gunpoint on an album that sold 2 million copies, primarily to preteens and young adolescents.
Forcing
oral sex at gunpoint on an album called Defenders of the Faith. The song is called Eat Me Alive.
From the hip.
It was basically the beginning of the end for the organization because people were starting to understand just how crazy it is to try and ban music you don't like. Plus, the individualism and creative freedom of the 80s was starting to take over and dominate the decade, and considering how much money was flowing through the music industry, fashion and Hollywood, no one was about to stop anything, because rock and roll is an unstoppable force that will blast away everything standing in its way.
So y'all figure around,